The zMAX Cars Tour is expanding out west, and this is a big deal. The zMAX Cars Tour West Series will have 10 events throughout 2024 at 5 different tracks, and this Pro Late Model Series will kick off their season at Kevin Harvick's Kern County Raceway on March 2nd. They'll also visit tracks like Irwindale, Stockton 99 Speedway, the Bull Ring at Vegas, and All-American Speedway. Talking about the Cars Tour first, here is why this is significant. Fans for a long time have been calling for this series to expand past the Carolinas to broaden its horizons. In general, it's important that we expand the scope of racing outside the Carolinas because there's a lot of wonderful tracks across the United States that need love and attention to keep short track Saturday nights alive. So having this series expand out west is a great deal because of that. And I know those tracks will benefit from a series like the Cars Tour going there because of their notoriety. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. When this news came out, I immediately thought about ARCA and how this would impact the ARCA Menards series because ARCA has their East and West divisions. Cars Tour seems to be moving in the same route. So let's analyze this a bit. Again, this is pretty opinionated, but I do want to preface before I even get into the opinions of this and also just some background information. I do appreciate and respect both of these series, the zMAX Cars Tour and the ARCA Menards series. I think they're both great proving grounds for talent. I respect the teams, the crews, the drivers, everyone who works to put these events on. So the point of this is not to bash either series. It's not to direct negativity towards these series. It's strictly just to point out an observation that I've had in questioning the direction of where motorsports in the United States is going. So leaving bias aside and thinking really logically about this, I do see a world where eventually the Cars Tour could have more appeal, more notoriety, and more value than the ARCA Menards series. I know this is kind of like comparing apples and broccoli or like apples and oranges or maybe apples and apples, two motorsports series that are kind of based in grassroots, though ARCA is more like national with grassroots flair and the Cars Tour is grassroots trying to make it more national. It's kind of like how I see the parallels of these two series. But there are still some similarities. For example, in entertainment value, I think both of these series have great talent and have great personalities. And then if we want to link entertainment value to racing product, that's where I see the first big difference between ARCA and the Cars Tour. Yes, ARCA does have a higher car count in terms of what we saw in 2023, but I feel like the product that ARCA has is not as competitive as we have seen in the Cars Tour. And there are two main reasons for that in my head, and that is driver talent and equipment. And by equipment, I mean how much money these teams are able to spend on the equipment to be able to race at a high caliber with all the other cars in the field. For example, Venturini Motorsports seems to be leaps and bounds ahead of the field all the time. And with Jesse Love's dominance this past season against every other car that was fielded in ARCA, the only reason he wouldn't want to race is if he somehow wrecked out or his car had an issue. Otherwise, he was pretty much guaranteed to win every single weekend because of how good of a talent he is, but also how good of equipment that his team has. At a very, very high level, I equate this to Red Bull Racing's season that they had in Formula One last year with Max Verstappen and everything in between. They won practically every race in the season, and the appeal gets lost unless you're a really big Max Verstappen fan when you go into a race weekend knowing who's going to win week in, week out. And I kind of felt the same way with ARCA this year. I knew Jesse Love was going to win unless there were some extreme circumstances. So when you have Venturini equipment that is top tier and you have some really strong Toyota ties versus the rest of the field, it's going to be extremely unbalanced. And I don't see that unbalancedness, if that's a word, in the Cars Tour. And I think I should backtrack a little bit, and I think I'm going to do a lot of this in this video, but I should say that I don't think dominance by one driver in a single racing season is a bad thing. It can be really entertaining and fun. Seeing Jesse Love and the raw talent that he is smoke up the show last year in ARCA was pretty incredible. But I also know when you have one driver that's guaranteed to win week in, week out with little to no competition, and I think Jesse Love's case, it can be kind of hard to bring in a fan to that series. It can be hard to build that excitement, but enough with, I guess, some negatives. I didn't mean that to be negative in a sense, but let's go to things that are strictly positives in my opinion with ARCA. For example, the way that they have a leg up with their TV deal versus I think what the zMAX Cars Tour has now. All of their races are on FS1. The East and West Series have their races on Flow Racing or on the Fox Sports app. Another positive for the ARCA Menards series is that they have acted technically as a direct feeder series into the top 3 national NASCAR series for quite some time now. So if you're in ARCA, you know that you're on a really good and potentially direct path into Truck, then Xfinity, then Cup. Obviously, as the sport is evolving and the financials of the sport are changing, things are looking very different now, and I've talked about that many times over, but you have more of a direct link into the top series of stock car racing, which is really beneficial to drivers and provides them value. And this is where I bring in sponsorship for the ARCA series. You are bringing your sponsors great value because they're on broadcast television on FS1. If they start a relationship really young in a driver's career, you can give them a somewhat guarantee like, hey, if I move up through the ranks from a Truck to Xfinity to Cup, we're going to try to bring you with us. We're going to try to give you more exposure as I move through the ranks if we start this relationship now, which is pretty cool to have a sponsor that moves with you through your career. And I think you're able to do that a lot easier with ARCA, especially knowing that NASCAR and the platform that they have versus maybe the Cars Tour right now. So that's another benefit I see to ARCA over Cars Tour at this time. So with all of that said, how could the zMAX Cars Tour ultimately impact, whether negatively or positively, the ARCA Menards series now that they are expanding out west? As I mentioned, I think the competition in the zMAX Cars Tour is a lot better. I know that we're talking about different racing styles, but I think the competition is much closer from what I've seen this past year and the year prior. If you add in good competition to a really solid new ownership group with Dale Earnhardt Jr., Justin Marks, Jeff Burton, and Kevin Harvick, and then on top of that, you add in a really good, just overarching sponsorship with zMAX, I think you're well on your way to making something really successful. They're continuing to make very positive steps in the right direction, which is really good and really healthy for grassroots racing series across the country. The only thing I wish the Cars Tour had this year that would make them the total package, no question, that they don't have this year is a TV broadcast deal similar to ARCA. I think that they could do something like that where they have some things on FS1, then they have the rest on Flow Racing. Right now, all of their races are on Flow Racing, which again isn't a bad thing because streaming is growing and growing every single day, but there is still so much more potential value and return on investment in a broadcast type of deal with potential partners than maybe streaming alone right now. But that also depends on the company, what you're offering your partners, everything in between. But with all the things I said above with what the Cars Tour is adding in 2024, I think you're providing exponential value to your sponsors, to your fans, and to your drivers. All this change, I think, will help elevate the platform that the drivers in that series have as it gains notoriety. The last thing I want to talk about and touch on here is a phrase I said, return on investment. I think this is key when comparing and contrasting ARCA and the Cars Tour, because right now, I don't know if we have a clear answer as to which series is truly going to provide the best return on investment in years to come. Obviously, I think right now, ARCA is winning out because of that TV deal. But if the playing fields were level, which I think they're becoming more level between both series, where are you going to get the most bang for your buck? I think if you look at this from the competition perspective, if you're a driver, which series is more beneficial to not only grow you as an athlete, but grow your brand? From my marketing work behind the scenes, I can lightly touch on the dollar amount it takes to run in the Cars Tour and an ARCA. Again, it really does depend on what level of team do you want to race for, the amount of races you're going to have, and a lot more factors. But from what I've seen, it is less expensive to race in the Cars Tour versus ARCA right now. And like I said, when I'm comparing and contrasting the benefits of one series over another series, I come up with them being kind of equal in terms of value for sponsors, drivers, teams, whatever it may be. Things equal out when you weigh out the pros and the cons. With that said, I always love hearing your opinions. I do also wonder if any drivers are watching this and they want to put their opinions in the comments below. Whether you've raced in both series, you have experience trying to enter one series or the other, you've only raced in one of the series, but you have thoughts on this, I'm always open to learning more and hearing those ideas in conversations. But again, the question still remains, over time, which series is going to build the biggest value for the sponsors, the fans, the teams, and the drivers? And I don't think we're going to know that until maybe 5 years from now when the Cars Tour is grown enough with its new owners and its new partners, etc. So although this video was originally about the Cars Tour expanding west and how big of a deal that is, I thought it was pretty prominent to bring in the conversation about ARCA, as I feel like how the Cars Tour is going, where it's going, gives off ARCA vibes in terms of how they're expanding with their different types of series. But that's just me. And before I go, I do want to say again, this was not meant to have ill will on any of the series. I truly do value and appreciate both series of racing, as they both offer similar things, but also different things. They're both very exciting. I love the personalities. I appreciate the work that goes into making these races happen week in and week out. And I really am excited to see how these series continue to grow well into the future and what's to come of that. So again, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and for more NASCAR news, make sure to visit TobyChristie.com and AboveTheYellowLine.com. Also, make sure to follow our social media accounts and subscribe to our channels to know when we post, so turn on those notifications too. That's it for this video. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel, and until next time, I'll see ya. Bye.